How long can a 10-year-old really survive in detention? For most kids, it's an hour after school, maybe a week if they really mess up. But for Bart Simpson, detention isn't a punishment, it's a lifestyle. From chanting "down with homework,"
Down with homework?
to pulling pranks so outrageous they nearly destroyed Springfield Elementary, Bart has stacked up punishments that no ordinary student could ever serve in a lifetime. So today, we're digging through Bart's wildest pranks and the shocking truth about just how long Springfield's most wanted troublemaker has been stuck in detention. Before Bart became Springfield's most wanted troublemaker, he was just a kid with a slingshot, a skateboard, and a burning desire to test every adult's patience. But almost from the very beginning, Bart's antics crossed that invisible line between harmless mischief and behavior that earned him a permanent seat in detention. Take his first big moment of rebellion, convincing the entire class to chant "down with homework" in unison. At 10 years old, Bart managed to turn a group of restless kids into a full-blown uprising. It wasn't clever, it wasn't even original, but it worked. The teachers had no choice but to silence the chaos, and Bart walked away with his first official punishment: one day in detention. And if there's anything Bart loves more than skateboarding or TV, it's attention. That one day was all the encouragement he needed. From there, detention became less of a punishment and more of a recurring event in Bart's weekly schedule. He was already a bad influence on his classmates, sneaking, scheming, and pushing everyone else into trouble, like the time he stuck nicotine patches on every boy in class.
Nick! Oh!
Just to see what would happen. Instead of a harmless prank, it nearly turned Springfield Elementary into a nicotine rehab center. His punishment? 14 straight days in Supermax detention. Imagine being 10 years old and already having to serve what felt like a prison sentence. That's when it became obvious. Bart wasn't just a class clown, he was a full-time problem. And nobody felt that more than Principal Skinner. From the very first season, Skinner was locked in a never-ending war with the one kid who could undo all his authority with a single prank. Detention became their battlefield. Skinner threw punishment after punishment at Bart, and Bart always found a way to make things worse. If you were a teacher at Springfield Elementary, you didn't just have one nightmare, you had Bart Simpson. But detention wasn't just about the hours Bart had to sit in silence. It was the beginning of his reputation. Every prank, every punishment, every minute spent scribbling on the chalkboard added to his legend. By the time Bart pulled off his first major prank in the Departed, detention wasn't just discipline anymore. It was the cost of being Springfield's most notorious kid. If the first part showed how Bart's bad behavior started, this is where it truly exploded. Springfield Elementary quickly learned that Bart didn't just play small tricks. He engineered full-scale chaos, the kind that earned him in legendary amounts of detention. Take the episode The Departed. Bart's place as the king of pranks is suddenly threatened when a new kid named Donnie shows up.
There's a new meat in my seat.
Bart, this is Donnie. He's here at our school because he was kicked out of PS 132.
Donnie's cool, funny, and instantly loved by the class. For Bart, this is a crisis. His entire reputation is at stake. So what does he do? He stages a prank so outrageous it leaves the entire school in shock. Before the school assembly, he slips metal plates into Skinner's shoes. Then, while hiding under the stage, Bart waves a huge magnet back and forth. The result? Skinner's feet move against his will.
It's not funny. These movements are involuntary.
Stumbling around like he's being remote controlled. The entire school bursts out laughing, and for a moment Bart has the crowd back on his side. But here's the twist. Donnie isn't who he says he is. He's actually a plant, sent in by Skinner and Superintendent Chalmers to snitch on Bart from the inside. Their master plan? Finally catch Bart in the act, and put him away for good. For a while, it looks like Bart's luck has run out. Every trick he tries, Skinner is already 5 steps ahead, thanks to Donnie's inside information. But in the end, Donnie switches sides. Skinner gets humiliated in a Mentos explosion, and Bart walks free. But don't be fooled. The near miss proves how desperate Skinner is to nail him, and how dangerous Bart's pranks have become. And then there's Bart, the lover. This wasn't just mischief. This was cruelty disguised as comedy. When Mrs. Krabappel puts out a Lonely Hearts ad, Bart discovers it and decides to catfish her, pretending to be a man named Woodrow. For weeks, he leads her on, sending fake letters filled with false promises. Mrs. Krabappel, desperate for connection, falls hard when the truth finally comes out.
I can't help but feel partly responsible.
She's devastated. left crying over her humiliation. Skinner could have given Bart a slap on the wrist for a prank with a yo-yo or a note passed in class. But this was emotional sabotage. It wasn't just cruel to Edna. It crossed a line that forced the adults of Springfield Elementary to see Bart not as a naughty child, but as something darker. His punishment stretched far beyond the usual afternoon in detention. Mrs. Krabappel made sure of it, stacking on weeks of grueling after-school sentences, and for the first time you got the sense that maybe detention wasn't enough. What makes these moments legendary isn't just the punishments, it's the scale of the chaos Bart was willing to cause. He didn't prank for laughs. He pranked to dominate, to prove no teacher, no principal, and no system could ever contain him. And as the seasons went on, the punishments grew harsher, the stakes got higher, and detention itself started to look more like a second home than a classroom. But detention wasn't just a punishment anymore. It became the birthplace of something unexpected, Bart's twisted path to success. Most kids leave detention with nothing but wasted time and a sore hand from scribbling chalkboard lines. But Bart, somehow, even detention managed to launch him into stardom, at least for a little while. In the episode 22 for 30, Bart plays one of his classic tricks on Skinner, sending out fake memos that cause the entire school to show up in white for Polar Bear Remembrance Day, while poor Skinner turns up in ridiculous Hawaiian florals for King Kamehameha's birthday. The prank backfires in the most brutal way possible. Skinner ends up swarmed by bees, and Bart is sentenced to the longest detention in Springfield Elementary history. At first, it looks like Bart's world has finally collapsed. Day after day, he's trapped in that gloomy classroom, forced to sit in silence while the rest of the kids are outside. But then something unexpected happens. With nothing to do, Bart starts tossing crumpled paper into the trash can. A few shots here, a few shots there, and suddenly, detention isn't punishment anymore, it's practice. Pretty soon, Bart discovers he has a real talent for basketball. The once bored troublemaker is now hitting every shot, impressing classmates, and earning the kind of attention he's always craved.
That's my son, which is of course another version of me.
That started as Skinner's ultimate punishment, transforms into Bart's golden ticket out of detention. Overnight, Bart goes from school menace to Springfield's newest sports star. For a brief moment, detention actually changes Bart's life. He's treated like a hero, celebrated for his skills, and allowed to skip out on the punishment that was supposed to keep him in line. Skinner, humiliated once again, has no choice but to ease up, because now Bart is too valuable to punish. But of course, this is Bart Simpson we're talking about. His glory days on the court don't last long. The moment he faces real competition, like a kid taller and stronger than him, the dream collapses. Bart's legend, as a basketball prodigy, ends as quickly as it began. And here's the kicker. Even though his career crumbled, his detention time didn't reset. He still carried the scars of that punishment. The hours, the weeks, the months that stacked up before he ever touched a basketball. It's a perfect example of Bart's twisted destiny. Even when punishment gives him a chance to shine, it never truly sets him free. Detention doesn't stop him. It just reshapes him, turning his mischief into chaos on a bigger stage. But if you thought Bart's basketball detour was wild, wait until you see what happens when his pranks stop being funny and start becoming criminal. Up until now, Bart's pranks mostly humiliated teachers, embarrassed principals, or left his classmates mildly annoyed. But eventually, his tricks crossed a line into territory so extreme that detention started to feel less like a punishment and more like a prison sentence. Take the episode, Bart's Brain. Bart stumbles across an actual human brain in a jar.
My life up to now has been merely a prelude. Today, a prank king becomes a prank god.
He grosses out classmates, scares his teachers, and even makes Sideshow Bob, a literal criminal mastermind, uneasy. The peak of his madness comes when he brings the brain to school, right as an inspector is visiting. Within minutes, Springfield Elementary is a disaster zone. Students are vomiting, and the cafeteria becomes a toxic waste site of puke. The punishment? 4 solid weeks of detention. And that wasn't just about Bart being disruptive. It was about the school barely surviving his prank spree. But Bart wasn't done. In The Boy Who Knew Too Much, he takes his rebellion to the next level by skipping school entirely, faking a dentist appointment. He ditches class and ends up witnessing Mayor Quimby's nephew in the middle of what looks like an assault. Bart is the only one who knows the truth, that the waiter just slipped. But speaking up would mean admitting he skipped school. And if Principal Skinner is anything, it's relentless. The man literally chases Bart across town, refusing to let him get away with cutting class.
Oh my god. that he is like some sort of non-giving up school guy.
By the time Bart testifies in court, he's cornered. He can't hide the truth anymore. Quimby's nephew walks free, but Bart pays the price. 4 months of detention. Not 4 days, not even 4 weeks, 4 months, for one skipped school day.
3 months detention.
Hmm.
Wait a minute, Bart. Make that 4 months detention.
That's how far Skinner is willing to go. Punishments for Bart weren't about justice anymore. They were about breaking him. It's around here that you start to realize Springfield's teachers don't even see detention as a tool anymore. It's become Bart's second life. His record is so long, the punishment's so absurd, that he spends more time under punishment than in freedom. And still, he never stops. But detention at Springfield Elementary is nothing compared to what's coming next. Because Bart isn't just about to face after-school punishments. He's about to face the law. Detention was supposed to scare Bart straight, but if anything, it only made him bolder, and eventually, Springfield Elementary wasn't enough to contain him. Bart wasn't just the teacher's nightmare anymore. He became a problem for the entire town. It all comes to a head in the wandering juvie. Bart hatches one of his most elaborate scams yet, a fake wedding registry. He and a partner set it up at a shopping mall, tricking dozens of Springfield residents into buying expensive gifts for the happy couple. The guests show up expecting a celebration, only to find themselves locked in with no air, no food, and no explanation. Bart, of course, thinks it's hilarious, but this time, the authorities don't. Chief Wiggum arrests him on the spot.
Come on, Chief, it was just a prank. Would some flatware make things right?
What does it say on my badge? Cash bribes only.
And the judge is brutal. Bart's criminal record is already a mile long. And this stunt is the last straw. His sentence, 6 months in juvenile detention.
Please, Judge, you can't. I'll do anything. I'll squeal on my dad. He's been up to bad things. Crap you've never even thought of.
Not after-school detention, not chalkboard lines, real time in a real facility, with real consequences. For Bart, juvie is a nightmare. He's bullied, mocked, and stripped of his usual tricks. Even his beloved Itchy and Scratchy cartoons are replaced with watered-down, non-violent versions. And for once, he isn't the alpha, he's just another kid, doing hard time. His cellmate, Gina, is tough, bitter, and quick to remind him that in here, pranks don't make you cool, they get you hurt. But Bart, being Bart, he can't sit still. With only 2 weeks left on his sentence, he does the dumbest thing possible. He escapes. Handcuffed to Gina, the two go on the run across Springfield. For a while, it feels like one of Bart's wild adventures, skating free from responsibility. But this time, the consequences are far heavier. Escaping juvie isn't a prank, it's a crime. And yet, somehow, Bart gets lucky again. Gina takes the blame for their escape, and Bart walks away without having to serve extra time. Still, the damage is done. 68 days in juvenile detention, almost half a year of his life gone, and the only lesson he learns is that he can survive anything, even juvie. This was supposed to break him. Instead, it just proved that no punishment, not school detention, not months behind bars could truly stop Bart Simpson. If anything, the stakes only made him more dangerous, and the war with Skinner, it wasn't over. In fact, it was about to hit its peak. For years, Skinner tried to keep Bart in line with traditional punishments. Chalkboard lines, after-school detentions, suspensions, but eventually, even Skinner realized none of it worked. Bart didn't just shrug off punishment, he thrived on it. So Skinner had to get creative, and in the process, he handed down some of the harshest, most ridiculous sentences ever seen in Springfield Elementary. One of the clearest examples comes from Please Homer, Don't Hammer Him. The setup is almost too perfect. Springfield Elementary bans peanuts after a student is revealed to have a life-threatening allergy. Bart, being Bart, immediately discovers the allergic student is none other than Principal Skinner himself. And in that moment, Bart realizes he has found Skinner's ultimate weakness. From then on, the torment begins. Bart waves peanuts in Skinner's face, forces him into humiliating acts, and even makes him perform degrading songs about having cooties.
I'm a cootie eater. I've been one all my life. I like the cooties so much. I have a cootie wife.
The pranks stop being funny and start looking like psychological torture. For Skinner, it isn't just humiliation anymore. It's survival. But Skinner isn't completely helpless. After digging through medical records, he discovers Bart's own weakness, a severe allergy to shrimp. What follows is less like a school prank and more like a duel out of a superhero movie. Bart with his peanuts, Skinner with his shrimp, chasing each other across Springfield until they both plunge into a vat of peanut and shrimp sauce at a Thai food factory. It's absurd, it's over the top, and it's deadly serious. One wrong move, and either of them could die. Both survive, but Skinner has finally had enough. For years, Bart humiliated him in front of students, staff, and even his own mother. But trying to kill him with peanuts? That crosses every line. So Skinner doesn't just hand Bart a punishment. He gives him the maximum sentence possible. 600 days. That's almost 2 full years of detention. Writing lines, cleaning classrooms, sitting in silence while life moves on around him. For most kids, that would be unthinkable. But for Bart, it was just another ain't in his long list of punishments. The 600-day sentence shows just how far Skinner was willing to go to try to break Bart, and how little success he actually had. Because even after nearly 2 years of punishment hanging over his head, Bart didn't stop. He never stops. And this isn't even counting the most iconic punishment of all. The one every fan sees at the start of nearly every episode. The one that proves Bart has been in detention longer than any other kid in Cartoon Tootie. Even if Bart had never pulled a prank, never scammed his classmates, or never terrorized Skinner with peanuts, he'd still hold the record for the longest time ever spent in detention, thanks to one of the most iconic running gags in television history, the chalkboard. From the very first episode, The Simpsons opened with Bart scribbling punishment lines on the classroom chalkboard. And while the gag was played for laughs, think about what it really means. Every single line is a detention Bart had to serve. Every single sentence represents hours stuck in that classroom, paying for something terrible he did that week, and there are a lot of them, across the 790 plot episodes of The Simpsons. Over 370 feature chalkboard gags. That's at least 370 separate detentions, and that's just the baseline. Some punishments are simple, like I will not waste chalk. Others are bizarre, like SpongeBob is not a contraceptive, or organ transplants are best left to the professionals. But every single one adds another tick to the tally of Bart's never-ending punishment record. Some of the lines even hint at punishments far worse than a slap on the wrist. I will not tweet as the principal's toilet. I do not have the hots for my mom. Jesus's last words were not TGIF. These aren't just cheeky jokes. They're confessions of how far Bart's mischief really goes. Things so outrageous they'd probably earn him suspensions, expulsions, or in some cases therapy. And yet he always ends up back at that same chalkboard, chalk in hand, scribbling another sentence. The gag became such a staple that other shows started copying it. Family Guy, South Park, even Disney Channel cartoons. But none of them did it like Bart. If you do the math, that's hundreds of extra hours in detention stacked on top of the record we've already been counting. Hundreds of extra days Bart has spent staring at that blackboard, carving out his as Springfield Elementary's eternal prisoner. The chalkboard isn't just a gag. It's proof that Bart's life is detention. No matter what else happens in the episode, whether he wins, loses, or barely escapes Skinner's wrath, you can bet that by next week, Bart will be right back at that chalkboard, writing the same old lines. But here's the big question. After all the pranks, all the sentences, all the chalkboard gags, how many days has Bart actually spent in detention? Let's break it down. The early classroom uprisings, from down with homework, chants to nicotine patch pranks, earned him days and weeks in detention. Cruel pranks like catfishing Mrs. Crabapple stacked on even more, stretching punishments into months. Outright crimes like skipping school and the boy who knew too much cost him 4 months of his life. His fake wedding scam in The Wandering Juvie handed him 168 days in juvenile detention. And Skinner's most brutal sentence of all, the peanut and shrimp war in Please Homer, Don't Hammer 'em, landed him 600 straight days. On top of all that, the chalkboard gag, with over 370 episodes featuring Bart writing punishment lines, that's at least 370 extra days of detention carved into his record. Add it all up, and Bart has spent a jaw-dropping 2,882 days in detention. That's more than 5 years of his 10-year-old life spent stuck in punishment. But his story is just one part of Springfield's chaos. If you want more shocking Simpsons stories, check out my other videos right here. I promise, they'll keep you hooked.